What is it like to be an outcast among outcasts? Rogue is a character who is potentially one of the most tragic in fiction. She has been robbed of the ability to touch people. Everyone she touches, she kills, and there's no way for her to stop herself from doing this. But first, before we get into all the heavy stuff with this video, I want to go ahead and give a brief intermission and talk about how we got here in the first place. So it's 1970, and Marvel has tried to branch out into the movie industry with one failed Fantastic Four movie and a Captain America movie that nobody went to see. But they hit gold with the movie Blade in 1998. But there was a slight problem. You see, Marvel had sold off a majority of their characters' rights in the 1990s to keep themselves afloat in the comic book industry, as comics were failing horribly at the time. They sold the rights to X-Men, one of their most popular franchises. They sold that off to 20th Century Fox for just a little over $2 million at the time. Chump change. So, in 1996, they started to begin production and writing on a brand new movie for the X-Men. But how do you adapt this family who at this point has had decades worth of storylines and plot lines happen? It's simple. You bring in a surrogate character. For a very long time, since 1980, Kitty Pryde had been the audience's surrogate for the X-Men in Marvel Comics. She was meant sort of for new readers at the time to be able to insert themselves into her shoes and to learn more about the X-Men mythos. But strangely enough, when it came time to make the movie, they decided not to go with Kitty as being the surrogate for the audience. Instead, they chose a character that appeared 1 year later in the comics, and that would be Rogue. You see, Rogue in the 2000 X-Men movie had just accidentally killed her boyfriend, at least in her mind. She had put him in a coma that he wasn't coming out of, all because she had kissed him. And so in response to this, she ran. She ran away from home, and she went all the way up to Alberta, Canada, where she happens into a bar where there is a lot of cage fighting. And it just so happens that one of the cage fighters is Wolverine. Now, after the fighting was over for the night and most people had cleared out of the bar, Rogue was just kind of stuck there. She didn't have anywhere to go, and she was contemplating stealing money from the tip jar inside of the bar. But when it came time for her to leave, she ended up having a conversation with Logan, in which the people at the bar happens to figure out that both her and Logan were mutants. And of course, this doesn't end well. So, Logan decides to dip. He gets in his car to leave, but little does he know, he has a hitchhiker with him. You see, Logan is kind of a dickhead at this point. This is pre-meeting the X-Men. And even though Logan isn't exactly the greatest person, he still cares for Rogue. He feeds her even though she's a stowaway in his truck. But unfortunately, as most superhero movies go, nothing can be simple. And Logan and Rogue are both attacked by Sabretooth, who holds a very particular grudge with Logan, one of which he doesn't know why for now. And so with that, Sabretooth gets the jump on Logan and starts to beat on him pretty damn bad. I mean, Logan looks out cold at this point, and Rogue has no idea how to use her powers. She's helpless. But as if on cue, Storm and Cyclops show up. The X-Men show up to save the day. And suddenly, it's as though Rogue is thrust into a place that she belongs. She is in a school where everyone is different, just like her. Everyone has powers. Everyone seems to understand what she's going through. She has fellow classmates. She isn't looked at as this outcast, and she really excels at it. Hell, there's even a boy she likes in those classes. But this came with drawbacks and consequences. Rogue was thrust into a world that understood her, but she was also thrust into a world at war. Mutants were divided into one of two camps. You were either with Charles Xavier and the X-Men, or you were with Eric Lensher, Magneto, and you were with the Brotherhood of Mutants. Both of them share the same goal: for mutants to no longer be persecuted and attacked in the public eye, for them to not be taken over and to be abused and used as living weapons or seen as freaks and outcasts. But they took two very different viewpoints on how to handle this. Magneto believed in pure genocide of the entire human race, whereas Charles Xavier believed in integration. It's another late night at the mansion. Rogue can't sleep because she happens to be next to Logan's room, and he's having another bout of night terrors. Dreams that plague him from the experiments that were done on him. And Rogue wants to go see what's wrong with him and sort of understand what's going on. You see, part of her power sets is if she touches you, she can absorb not just your powers and your life force, but also your memories. She can understand you on a deeper level. And so she tries to do this with Logan to help ease his pain, because she feels like she has some of her powers under control. But unfortunately, she nearly kills Logan in the process of trying to help him with his memories. She is literally sucking the life force out of him, and the rest of the school comes in and sees this happening, and she is branded as a freak. She truly becomes an outcast among outcasts. It gets to the point where even the one person she thought she was liked by, Bobby, doesn't even want her around.
Rogue.
Bobby.
Rogue, what did you do? They say that you're stealing other mutants' powers.
No, I borrowed his power.
You never use your power against another mutant.
I had no choice. No, you
If
have
I
to
were you,
understand
I'd
me.
get myself out of here.
What do you mean?
Listen, the students are freaked. Professor Xavier's furious. I don't know what he'll do with you.
Rogue is justifiably and extremely hurt and sad at the fact that she thought she belonged somewhere, that everything was going to be okay finally, and now she feels like she's alone all over again. And it's bad, man. She decides to take Bobby's advice and she decides to leave. But this wasn't exactly Bobby. This was Mystique. Mystique wanted Rogue to run because she wanted to be able to capture her. Magneto wants Rogue for his own means to an end, and Rogue is falling right into that trap. She gets on the bus to try and leave upstate New York where the X-Mansion is. She looks around at everybody and sees the way that they're able to be touched, to be happy, and she is so sad by that fact. As a matter of fact, it takes Logan coming down from the X-Mansion and going after Rogue for her to even consider coming back.
There's not many people that'll understand what you're going through. But I think this guy Xavier's one of them. He seems to genuinely want to help you, and that's a rare thing. For people like us.
But it was unfortunately entirely too late. Magneto had come in search of Rogue, and he was not going to leave empty-handed. And it's not like there was much Wolverine could do against a dude who can control his entire skeleton. And so, Magneto takes Rogue. He kidnaps her and decides to use her for his own means as a sort of living weapon. But this doesn't sit well with Logan. He is pissed and he wants to go after Rogue. He has grown very attached to Rogue throughout this movie. It's one of the best parts of this movie is the bond between Logan and Rogue. This movie has its fair share of problems, but it's this dynamic between these two characters that is so great, and it's exemplified in this scene.
Help us. Fight with us.
Fight with you? Or join the team? Be an X-Man? Who the hell do you think you are? You're a mutant. The whole world out there is full of people that hate and fear you, and you're wasting your time trying to protect them. I got better things to do. You know, Magneto's right. There's a war coming. You sure you're on the right side?
At least I've chosen a side.
It takes those words for Storm to Logan for him to register that he's not going to be able to find Rogue and do this on his own. And so, reluctantly, he decides to team up with the X-Men and put on one of their suits. And, well, he's not exactly very good at stealthing through the Statue of Liberty, where Rogue is being held. This unfortunately leads to the group's capture, but in their capture, it's not Wolverine or Cyclops or Storm who break out of their cell and immediately get to destroy Magneto. It takes a distraction from Rogue in order for this to happen. Rogue is pivotal in getting this to stop. And in typical comic book movie fashion, it ends with a gigantic light show on top of the world as Rogue desperately tries to contain her powers. And when everything is said and done, Rogue is safe and the day is saved. Thankfully, she didn't have to make the ultimate sacrifice. And for her troubles, she even got a slightly new hairdo. And for all of her suffering and all of her struggles for being an outcast among outcasts, at the end of the movie, she had finally found a home and at least one person that truly cared for her. And even though Logan had to go deal with his own problems and his own demons up north in Canada, he wanted to give something to Rogue, just to prove to her that he's not running away and that he will come back to be with her. Two people who were always running have found a place to call home.
I'll be back for this.
So that is 2000's X-Men. It has its fair share of problems, specifically for me in the costume department. All black leather is a very 2000s choice. But this movie, at its core, really tried its best, and I think did a really great job of bringing my favorite comic book franchise to the big screen. And I think the choice to use Rogue as the audience's surrogate was amazing. And the way she sort of is always looking from the outside in is how the viewer feels until the end of the movie. If you haven't given the Fox's X-Men movies a watch, I say go for it, especially with Deadpool 3 on the horizon, bringing Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine. And I just want to take a second to thank you all for watching. 600 subscribers is fucking crazy, so thank you all for that. If you want to see these videos unedited or early, you can go check out my Patreon. If you don't want to support, that's completely fine. Thank you all for watching, and I'm out.